Good evening. It's now 6 o'clock, so I will call this May 18th, 2026 Acton Select Board meeting to order. Our first item of business is resident concerns for anyone wishing to speak on a topic that is not on the agenda. Are there any folks online?
We have 2 online with 0 hands.
All right. So I guess we will go to the next item, which is the chair update. And I wanted to start off by just recognizing that I will be continuing the practices that were established by our previous chair and chairs before him. I will respond to emails that come into the entire board. We will continue starting our meetings at 6 p.m. That seems to be working out very well. We will also continue a 3-minute time limit for public comment. And if there are any emails that you would like to respond to, just give me a heads up if you have information that folks are requesting. And in terms of some of my liaison assignments, I wanted to provide an update from the Acton Water District. All 3 of their treatment plants are operational and delivering PFAS non-detect water as of the end of April. And the outdoor water restrictions have been relaxed from level 4 to level 3 as of May 11th. So folks are allowed for outdoor water use for lawns 1 day a week. The groundwater is still lower than normal, but the conditioning of the new PFAS removal plants is complete. And this weekend, on Sunday, the library, the Acton Memorial Library, will be closed for the annual carpet cleaning, and they'll also be closed on Monday for Memorial Day. And I wanted to let everybody know that there is a heat advisory through 8 p.m. on Wednesday. So just want to make sure that folks are keeping an eye on any signs of heat illness. If they're not accustomed to the high heat, drink lots of fluids, stay out of the sun, limit activities midday, and wear light and loose clothing. Our Memorial Library staff have posted a video on social media alerting everyone that if they need some air conditioning, the library is one place that you can go. So if you're not already following the Facebook page for the library, you should do that. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention is that on Thursday last week, the 15th annual NSTAR Award event was held. The STAR stands for Service to the Town of Acton Recognition, and 10 employees were recognized for 10, 20, and 30 years of service. Folks from the fire, police, clerk, health, and DPW departments, and all total for them 180 years of service. So I want to offer one more shout out of thanks to those employees. And now we can move on to the manager's update.
Madam Chair, I just have a couple things on behalf of the town manager to update the board with. They're all centered around the Memorial Day Parade that is scheduled for this Monday. You may have noticed on your way into Town Hall, the flags have been placed around the Isaac Davis Memorial right out the front along Main Street. That's been done, as has been done in the past years, by the Veteran Service agent, James McRae. That's part of the preparations for the May 25th parade, which will begin at 10 a.m. over at the Boardwalk campus at Gates School. It'll step off right at 10 a.m. and then it'll proceed along the traditional route with a stop in West Acton Common, where an abbreviated ceremony will be held before the parade is dismissed. There is no rain date, so we invite the community to come out, rain or shine. I think the weather, hopefully, fingers crossed, will hold off. As part of this preparation, DPW will also be conducting street sweeping. They conducted street sweeping last night. DPW will be back out in the West Acton area on Tuesday, the 19th, so tomorrow night, beginning at 10 p.m. And this is all in preparation for the Memorial Day Parade, and that's all we have.
Thank you. And are there board members who have any announcements?
Thank you. I just wanted to remind folks again that there's a survey open for the naming of the 53 River Street Park. If you go to the town's homepage and you click on View All under the notices, you'll find the link to the survey. If you have an opinion, please express your preference. Oh, that survey will be open until the end of the month.
Anybody else? All right. We have a couple of public hearings, but they're scheduled for 6:30 and 6:45. So we can go ahead and skip down to item number 4. Does that sound good? Discuss July 2nd Independence Day celebration and special ceremonies. And we'll just get an update for
Yes, so thank you. At the last
event.
meeting, there was a brief discussion, and Deputy Town Manager Tom Beechin has some info that he put in the packet with some updates on what we're looking at for the July 2nd event. And I understand the board maybe has some input on some of the finer details of the ceremony. Do you want to go over what the baseline is?
I'd be happy to. So I will drop this into your packet tonight. I apologize about not having that in earlier. The Parks and Recreation Director, Tim Mikulski, and the Events Program Coordinator, Maura Haberman, have been working diligently for the last 2 months in preparing for the July 2nd Independence Day celebration. So the rundown of the event itself, from 4 to 7:30 will be a new themed family fun time. If you remember a few years prior to COVID, there used to be some bounce houses, some games, water slides, a couple of different things that were ancillary activities for the July 4th event. Those will be coming back this year. Included will be beach access, so we'll open up the beach this year and have lifeguards on duty during this time. We'll have a number of food vendors, which have been at the event in years past, so that'll be coming back. There'll be games and music as well during this family fun time. At 7:30, the opening ceremony will begin. This will include speeches from a number of state legislators who will be attending. They're reaching out to confirm from the representatives and the senator their availability, but traditionally, I believe at least one has been able to show. And then address from the select board chair, as is tradition for the last few years. And then a possible reading of a poem or the Declaration of Independence, which was discussed by the board and considered. From 8 to 10:30, this is the real fun part of the event as well. Not that everything up to this has not been fun, but it'll be the Boss Project, which is a Bruce Springsteen tribute concert. So they'll be performing from 8 to 10:30. And then beginning at about 9:20, we'll be introducing a laser show into the event as well. So in lieu of fireworks, there'll be something that's similar to the Pink Floyd concert that's been held at NARA in the past few years. So that'll kick off about 9:20 and it'll last about an hour. The food vendors will be there throughout the duration of the event, so about 4 to 10:15. They'll start to clean up right before the concert ends, and the event will wrap up at 10:30. A couple of changes in comparison to prior years. We've utilized quite a bit of satellite parking and shuttle buses. We do not expect, the expectation is that the attendance will not be as large as it has been because this is more of a local event this year instead of a regional event. So we've not pursued satellite parking or shuttle buses. We're pretty confident that if the attendance is similar to what we have for larger concerts, so about 1,500 people, that we're able to accommodate parking on site. That'll be at line spaces and on the fields over at the ball fields at NARA as well. That is the wrap of the event so far. We're in pretty good shape. Everyone's pretty excited on the town side. And from an event sponsorship standpoint, Maura has done a great job, as you've seen in some of your recent agendas, on obtaining some donations from area businesses that'll continue supporting not only this event, but other summer event series events too. I'm happy to answer any questions you have, but that's the full rundown.
Are there any questions from board members before I talk about the declaration? Pam?
Excuse me, it seems since this is a different day and something unusual, that it's going to be really, really important to get the word out to people that this is happening. And I just was curious, is there plans for any like special outreach to make sure folks know that this is happening?
Thank you very much for that. This is a great opportunity to highlight a couple of the different things that Recreation will be doing in advance, so I appreciate that question. There will be banners up along the two different locations along Main Street, as in past years, to highlight the event and get the word out. We'll also be working on a news flash and a potential press release as well. We'll work with the Acton Exchange or any other organization who can help us get the word out, but through the press release, it usually has a wider reach. And of course, we'll mention it here every single select board meeting before the event. But if there's any additional areas that you or any of the board members feel that we should reach out to, we're happy to do so as well to get the word further out.
Thank you for the update. So I just wanted to, hopefully this is brief, comment about my concern that I raised back in March when the board voted to hold the more locally focused Independence Day event that would include the concert and light show and the reading of the Declaration of Independence. And I suggested that the racial slur, which is in the final grievance, and it's directed towards the land's indigenous people, it's grievance number 27, should not be read out loud at an official town event. And I referenced the board's respect for all statement. That's very clear. Any type of hurtful speech or action targeting anyone for who they are is unacceptable here, including racism and ethnic slurs. So my initial reaction was that this was a celebration for the community, and to have that read out loud to a crowd of hundreds or even thousands, I didn't imagine that that was a setting in which we could engage with a text in a thoughtful, deliberate way. That, a text that contains offensive language. Acton has been engaged in efforts to build trust and good relations with our indigenous neighbors, the Neshoba Praying Indians, for the past several years, and my hope is for those efforts to continue to be successful. However, I had a lot of engaging conversations with community members over the past week, and I have come to an understanding that I was not really thinking through this really critically or with nuance. And, recognizing that most people are familiar with the words of the Declaration's preamble and maybe not so much with the 27 grievances, which is the bulk of the text. It's actually, I read that it was described as a prosecutorial brief, basically justifying the extra-legal action of going to war against the Crown. So reading those specific complaints provides a timeline of events that precipitated the Revolutionary War. And throughout history, the Declaration has been read on many occasions to invoke holding the nation to its foundational promises. So this year's reading in Acton, which marks the 250th anniversary of the document's adoption and signing, should be no different. However, we have a responsibility to be inclusive and welcoming. So what I propose is that we preface the reading by contextualizing the document. So similar to the way that in a classroom teacher might provide context before the class reads Huckleberry Finn, or before a staging of The Merchant of Venice in your playbill or the director's statement, you would be aware that the play contained anti-Semitic language. So I'm looking for the board's feedback on that. I've spoken with the captains of the Acton Minutemen, the 250 committee member who's been asked to read the Declaration, some of my racial justice colleagues, and this is where I've landed.
Thank you. That sounds awesome. Yes.
Dean?
Yeah, I think you've done a good job of threading the needle there. And I do think, one of the things we talked about back in March was, if people have particular problems, can we put this in context? So, however the presenters want to do that, just to kind of give folks a little bit of a background, I think that's good. But I applaud you in the decision to read the entire historic document.
David?
Yeah, I think that's a good plan. I'll just note that NPR, before they read the declaration every year on the air on July 4th, they say, "The story quotes the U.S. Declaration of Independence, a document that contains offensive language about Native Americans, including a racial slur." I think that's a very reasonable statement before.
And Pam?
I agree, and maybe one suggestion as part of the, putting it into context is, would it be possible to do some type of maybe land acknowledgement?
Thank you for that suggestion. I did connect with the former captain of the Acton Minutemen at the suggestion of the current captains. He's also a member of the 250 committee, Steve Crosby. And in his city, they have extended an invitation to local indigenous groups to participate if they choose to. So that is one option, but I don't want to just make that decision. I want to hear from staff if that's a possibility, or if the board members support that. I wouldn't feel comfortable with a land acknowledgement unless we were in communication with the local indigenous folks. Dean?
Yeah, I think members of the board have wrestled with the whole concept of a land acknowledgement in the past, and I don't think we ever came to a really good understanding of what the acknowledgement should be and what the ramifications of it would be. So we don't have to the best of my knowledge, we don't have any kind of a document handy, so I think it might be premature to do that. I believe Jim, anyway, dealt with some of the descendants, some of the local indigenous people, and sort of advised us to back off on our thoughts for a while when he was on the board.
David?
Yeah, I heard this week from a member of Pine Hawk that the Neshoba Praying Indians now have a presence back here, and I don't know what here means. It's either Acton or Littleton, but I don't know where. But if we move forward with that, that might be a place to start.
Okay, that sounds good. Tom, do you have any thoughts on that? And how it would fit into, or John, how it would fit into what's already on the program?
Yeah, I think we're just at the cusp of locking in the program that we've been talking about since March. So I think if we're going to add another element, it's something to maybe work into next year.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think that is all I wanted to discuss. Although I do want to just mention that all of the folks that I had conversations with were quite curious to hear where I was coming from, and that really made for great conversations because there was no need for me to feel or be defensive. And I really appreciated all of the people who took the time to challenge me to go a little bit deeper into my knee-jerk thinking. Do you want us to take a vote on this? Yep. All right, so I move that at our July 2nd Independence Day celebration and special ceremony, the Declaration of Independence be read in its entirety with a preface contextualizing the document.
Second?
Any discussion further? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? All right, we still have about 10 more minutes. So I think probably we can do item 7. Assign a select board member to attend the Eagle Scout Court of Honor for Shakthi Saravanan on June 3rd, 2026 at 6 p.m. at the NARA Picnic Pavilion. Do we have any volunteers?
I'm happy to do it. Unless Dean would really love to do it.
I'm happy to do it.
Okay, Dean says a thumbs up.
Yep.
So thank you, Fran.
Pam, am I stepping on your toes?
Pam, just to let you know, the first year I was on the board, I went and listened to Fran's presentation, and it was a great event, and that was a great way for me to get my toes wet. Can we do number 6? Okay, so approve a unique real property determination for the acquisition of 46 Taylor Road.
Thank you. So as we all recall, the town meeting authorized the select board to acquire the property at 46 Taylor Road. Because of Massachusetts public procurement laws, we need the board to vote a declaration that this is a unique acquisition opportunity, and that is why we didn't advertise and solicit bids for other land that we may want to buy. So this document prepared by town council basically says that we shouldn't, if we, advertising this wouldn't have been in the best interest of the town because the piece of property that we wanted was available to us through Chapter 61 process. So and we need to file this for 30 days before the closing. So that's why we're asking you to sign it tonight. If there's any questions, I'm happy to address them.
Well, any questions from board members? All right, I'll accept a motion. David?
I move that we issue the statement of uniqueness as included in the packet for the acquisition of 46 Taylor Road.
A second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Dean. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? And any abstentions? All right, that's approved. It's still not 6:30, so I'm going to suggest that we attempt to tackle item number 8. Actually, you know what? Let's just do the consent items, because that will definitely be 5 minutes. So consent agenda, item number 9, accept donation of Ralph Waldo Emerson bust from William Montague. Item 10, accept donations to support the 2026 Summer Concert Series and special events. Sven's Supplies Orthodontist, $2,000. 11, accept $6,550 donation from Acton Boxborough Community Compass for the Community Services Emergency Assistance Fund. And item 12, approve January 9th, 2023 executive session minutes. David?
I move to approve consent items 9 through 12 inclusive. And I just want to say I'm very thankful that people choose to donate to the town. We really appreciate their support.
We need a second.
I'll second.
All right, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? So that passes unanimously. And we still have 5 minutes, so that clock must be stuck. What time is it?
It's 6:24.
All right. All right, let's go ahead and try to get through item number 8, which is confirm select board liaison assignments. And I did not see a table in the meeting packet. Is that correct? You have one to share. Awesome. David?
I was just wondering if that's what John ran out for. I sent a note just at the start of the meeting asking if we had a table of existing assignments. So this may not be a good thing to do right now, although Tom has a comment.
Perfect question. That has just been loaded into the packet. It's a 2025 liaison, so Jim's name is still on there, and I can bring it up to the screen, and that is what John went downstairs to grab.
It is in there.
Okay. So I just wanted to mention for my assignments that the Citizens Library Governance Advisory Committee has been sunsetted, and the Health Insurance Trust will be dissolved and non-existent as of June 30th. So I have 2 committee assignments that I will not have going forward this coming year. Or ever. Fran?
I was going to mention, with your position now, that might be a good thing.
It might be a good thing. I guess maybe, are there any other assignments on here that are null because the committees have been sunsetted? Like 53 River Street for David.
And I was wondering if the 250 committee sunsets in July.
So the 250 committee will sunset in, I believe, the 1st of October. Dog Park Committee will probably unwind sometime during the summer. And of course, I will no longer have a committee assignment with ALG. But there will be some ramping down of some of those committees shortly.
Oh. Sorry. I didn't realize this was 2 pages. That's, okay. So I guess the first thing to talk about is whether or not we want to have the chair and the vice chair serve on the ALG.
Well,
Dean?
I think that's worked well in the past, so I would certainly think that that should continue.
Is that agreeable to you, David? Okay. Fran?
Sorry
Thumbs
for
up.
Thumbs up.
for the remote audience, yes.
Okay. Sound good to you, Pam? Unless you want to jump
Yes.
right in. All right, I will accept comments from anybody else. So Pam, I know that you're aware that typically when newly elected board members are seated, they take on the committee assignments that the departing board member held. But if you want to lobby for any additions or deletions, let us know.
No, I am aware of that, and then I've gone through the committees that were assigned to Jim, and I would be very happy to take those on.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from board members? If you want to add or give up any committees, or you can comment on whether or not it seems to be a balance. All right, so it looks like Dean is giving up the Acton Leadership Group. David is adding it. David is no longer assigned to the 53 River Street Committee because it doesn't exist. And Dean will soon lose the 250 Committee and Dog Park Committee And Fran, are any of your committees sunsetted?
Not using that terminology, not in that official capacity. But, I'm trying to jumpstart Human Services Committee. That has been a real difficult start and continuation. I know the Cable Advisory Committee also is not meeting, has too few members. So no, not sunsetted, but needing some life.
All right, so it looks like those are the only changes, plus the ones that I mentioned at the beginning for the ones that are rolling off the Health Insurance Trust and Citizens Library Governance, yeah. Okay. All right, sounds good. Thank you, everybody. And now, is that clock right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, it's exactly 6:30. So I will read the notice of public hearing. The Acton Select Board will hold a re-advertised public hearing, continuation of a previously opened hearing on May 18th, 2026 at 6:30 PM in the Francis Faulkner Hearing Room 204 at the Town Hall, 472 Main Street, Acton, and virtually www.actonma.gov/meeting/SB on Primrose Schools Franchising Company for a site plan special permit under zoning bylaw section 10.4 at 457 Massachusetts Avenue. The applicant proposes to construct a two-story, 14,134 square foot childcare facility. Application materials and how to participate remotely are available online and at Acton Town Hall at doc.actonma.gov/dsweb/view/collection-19896. And the applicants are here. Before we hear from the applicants, I just wanted to run down a little bit of information about re-advertising the hearing. So the public hearing was opened on February 23rd, and the applicant opted to re-advertise and essentially begin the hearing anew so that our newly seated board member may participate and vote, Pam Nurse. So we need to ensure that all questions and comments are raised anew to be incorporated into the record. However, we may all address the most recently updated plans. There's no need to address any item again that has become irrelevant due to a change in the plans. So one example of such a change is the incorporation of an all-electric heating and cooling system, which eliminates the need for a fossil fuel-free waiver. And I wanted to repeat the brief summary of legal notes that were provided to the board, and then I'll ask the applicant to offer a brief introduction to the proposal, and then have planning staff outline the outstanding considerations for the board to discuss this evening, and the memo is in the packet. The proposed use, a childcare center, is allowed in a residential area per the Dover Amendment, and the town cannot deny the use or impose conditions that would effectively deny, meaning make it impossible or impractical for the applicant to use as intended. According to the most recently published guidance from the Attorney General's office that was sent to us by Town Council, the site plan review allows the board to impose reasonable dimensional requirements in one of 8 categories that are listed in the statute. Those are bulk and height of structures, yard sizes, lot area, setbacks, open space, parking, and building coverage. From the Attorney General's memo, regardless of the local procedure, a municipality seeking to impose conditions on a Dover protected use should be specific and transparent in its decision-making and should make clear how, in imposing conditions on the use, the municipality has struck a balance between preventing local discrimination against an educational use and legitimate municipal goals advanced by reasonable zoning regulations. Town council further notes that the burden is on the applicant to prove that any local requirements that would be imposed to advance the town's legitimate concerns are unreasonable. So just an advice to all the board members, any interests that the board identifies in the site plan review need to be specifically named and explained, and we can have council available to review those. The applicant is seeking relief from the following zoning requirements relative to the max square footage, the open space requirement, and the FAR, as well as landscaping in the parking lot. And we'd love to hear from the applicants. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Jonathan Silverstein. My office is in West Concord, and I'm counsel for the applicant. Mindful that this is a renoticed public hearing, I think we'll give sort of a brief overview of the project. But I do want to start out, if it's okay, just by revisiting some of the issues that were raised at the previous hearing and how we've addressed them and will be addressing them in more detail tonight. So one of the issues that the board had raised was wanting a second gate in the play area as a second means of emergency access, as will be shown on the revised site plans. That has been done in consultation with the fire department. So we've addressed that concern. There was a public comment from our neighbor to the north, and the applicant did meet with that neighbor, discuss landscaping, and I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but my understanding is that the neighbor is satisfied and that issue has been addressed to his satisfaction. As you mentioned, Madam Chair, one of the other issues that the board asked us to look at was agreeing to make the project fossil fuel free. We have agreed to do that, and that's shown on the revised plans. So I think that issue has also been resolved. The board asked us to look at sidewalks and a pedestrian walkway. So given the location of the sidewalks existing, as well as the location of the crosswalk, it didn't really seem to make any sense to put a sidewalk to the left of the project drive, but we did add sidewalk to the right of the project drive, as well as a pedestrian walkway that leads, that provides safe access from the sidewalk, from the crosswalk to the facility. So we'll walk you through there. The board asked us to get in touch with the school department to explore a shared vehicular access. We did do that, and we were politely told, but in no uncertain terms, that the school department has no interest in that. So we, of course, would be willing to do it, and we understand their reasons for not being interested in that. The last two issues, I think, are the main issues that we really haven't been able to make any changes, and they're related. One is reuse of the existing building, and one is the size of the proposed school. We'll explain in greater detail as we move forward. Reuse of the existing building is simply not feasible. The building, and someone had mentioned a project we did in Sudbury where we did reuse the building. In that case, the purchase price was lower. The existing building was a former synagogue, so it was designed and built for institutional use. It already had classrooms. It was already, it was a much more modern building. It was code compliant. It was all on one level. And it was in the appropriate location. it actually allowed us to get roughly the same amount of usable square footage that we're proposing here, but on one level. So it's a smaller total square footage because we don't have stairways, and it actually saved a fair amount of money. In contrast, the existing building on this site is located in an unusable area of the site. It was designed as a house. It doesn't come anywhere near code compliance. Without spending really prohibitive amounts of money, no use could be made of it, and it takes up space on the site that we just can't afford to give up. We did get in touch with the Historical Commission. We've been exploring whether there are any options to, find someone to take the building, and we're certainly willing to accept as a condition. We got a recommendation for where to place an ad. We're prepared to do that and would accept that as a condition of approval, but we just can't save the building and reuse it on the site. And in terms of the size of the building, Mr. Taylor is going to be much more proficient in explaining this to the board, but just as a preview, the need for classrooms at each age level, the fixed costs of site acquisition, staffing that doesn't change based upon the number of students, operational costs, all of these things, it doesn't, and construction costs, it just doesn't work. A 2,500 square foot daycare, you don't see those being built, and certainly Primrose has not built anything close to that. This is the business model that works, that allows Primrose to provide a great product and to move forward. And the board will hear it's simply not viable to do anything substantially smaller. And again, because of the configuration of the site, we need to put this on 2 floors, which results in loss. The gross square footage makes it look like it's more space in terms of actual usable space than it really is. So with that high-level summary, at this point, I would turn it over to Adam Drake, who can walk the board through a presentation. And we do have the full plan set, in addition to the presentation, available to answer any detailed questions the board might have. But I'll pause and see if there are any questions at this point. All right.
Thank you. My name's Adam Drake. I'm with Stonefield Engineering and Design based out of 120 Washington Street in Salem, Mass. We're the site civil as well as the traffic engineer on the project. I'd just like to run through some of the revisions we made to the updated set. We attempted to address all of the board's comments, all of the peer review comments, as well as the Mass DOT comments. So the reviewing engineer, his main focus or concern was related to the parking area and just ensuring we have safe and smooth circulation throughout the whole parking area. So kind of the big thing we did there is we incorporated 13 compact parking spaces, which allowed us to make shorter as well as thinner. So as opposed to 18 feet long or 19 feet long, now we can get them down to 13 and a half. So the one advantage to that is it allowed us to incorporate the sidewalk from Massachusetts Avenue that Mr. Silverstein brought up. And like he was saying, we did not extend that all the way across to the western property line there, just as an attempt to reduce the amount of landscaping walls, as well as to try to preserve some of the existing mature trees along that frontage. I'm sure you guys have seen it, but there's, some large existing trees there that we wouldn't want to interfere with or take away from screening the proposed project. The other thing adding those compact parking spaces allowed us to do was pull the trash enclosure a little bit closer to the parking area and bring those parking spaces down just to give better circulation for the garbage truck and easier pickup drop-off. I know that was one of the other peer reviewers, kind of larger concerns. Another thing that was brought up was bike spaces. So we have included bike spaces on this drawing. You'll see them at the southwest portion of the parking area. I know we've had some back and forth with the planning department and potentially relocating them back up to the northern sign, closer to the entrance of the building. So the applicant's happy to relocate that or work with the town staff to accommodate the safest location for that. And then there were several minor stormwater design comments that the reviewing engineer also had. So we provided additional swale calculations just to show that there's no erosion at the base of those perimeter swales. We really want to ensure there's no, impacts downstream. So in addition to the swale calcs, we've also provided scour holes at the base of those perimeter swales that you can barely make out up there, but it's essentially just riprap at the base of that to dissipate the velocity of the stormwater. In addition, we have incorporated water quality units upstream of each of the stormwater basins. So this will ensure that we're exceeding 90% for pollution removal prior to infiltrating that. So since the plans were updated and submitted, we have received a second peer review letter from the reviewing engineer. And then I believe the planning department has issued a memo kind of summarizing that the comments were minor in nature and can be worked out administratively as a condition of approval. So we're happy to work with the town to ensure we cross any Ts that are still remaining there. And then we've also worked to address all of the board comments. I know Mr. Silverstein ran few through of the larger ones like fossil fuel. We worked with ADA architects to convert the building to fully electric. And then we actually talked to the fire department regarding the egress from the play area. So we added a second means of egress on the eastern side of that play area just to ensure, in case of some emergency, there's a way to exit and it takes you to a relatively flat landscaped area. So the fire department was happy with that extra egress. They just wanted us to incorporate a couple notes, ensuring it stays plowed in the wintertime, just some operations and maintenance items there. And then I believe Mr. Silverstein also covered the landscaping. So the agreement we came to with the abutter there is that he was comfortable with the landscape plan as shown, and then post-construction, we'd reevaluate with him, and if he didn't feel it was sufficient, Primrose is going to work with him to enhance the buffer along his property line. Now, moving on to preserving the existing building. From an engineering perspective, the biggest challenge here is the existing grade of the site. So that existing driveway is, between 10 to 15% slope, which is really not a safe slope to be at. So that in conjunction with the proximity to the property line, the finished floor elevation is about 10 feet higher than the grade of the road, meaning there's really no practical way for us to grade a safe driveway up to that. There's not really a way for us to maintain ADA compliant slopes throughout a potential parking lot near the existing building. And also with that kind of exaggerated grade change, there's not a way for us to provide ADA compliant pedestrian access from that main road there. And then getting into some of the architectural challenges that we briefly covered before. Unlike some of the other adaptive reuse projects Primrose has done, this was not a building constructed for commercial use, so, there's low clearances, it's not ADA compliant, and like we mentioned earlier, it's a fairly low square footage. So we put together this comparison table just of other Primrose schools in Massachusetts. You can see in here there are several adaptive reuses on here. That being said, the smallest adaptive reuse is still about 11,000 square feet on here. That was Primrose Sudbury. It was the synagogue that Mr. Silverstein had previously mentioned. So here's just a screenshot of the existing conditions, or former conditions as of now at Primrose Sudbury. So we already had relatively compliant parking facilities, which, we did improve, but the groundwork was there. We didn't have to do drastic grading or site work, as opposed to with this property, if we wanted to do something similar, provide an adequate parking lot, we would have to do a substantial amount of earthwork, and given that the site has extremely shallow to bedrock, it would really hinder us doing any sort of site work to bring it up to, the standard we would want for the project. And then another example is Primrose Canton. So this is another single-story adaptive reuse. It was formerly used as a tech school. So similarly, it's already meeting, ADA compliance, and it, meets all of our industry standards. Now, this one was a little larger. It was 14,000, almost 600 square feet. But yeah, just based on historical, Primrose footprints, this one really just, it's not adequate. And then if I can transfer things over to Mr. Taylor to kind of take you through the summary of the costs and financials.
Thanks, Adam. Madam Chair, Board, thanks for your time tonight. I know there was a request for a really kind of a detailed pro forma. To be honest, it's something that we're a little cautious to do for a number of levels because it's a pro forma that's based on non-actuals. We don't really know, obviously, until we start operating. What I wanted to do is take pieces of this that I'm happy to share with you folks and the public, just so you understand, our overall cost to develop a project of this size. I know there was some discussion about what was the property under contract for. You'll see that in the first line. It's under contract for $1,125,000. That's the contract we have with Common Ground. That's what they'll get paid if we move forward with this project. If you go down to line 2, that's really has to do with the fees that we pay, the civil engineers and the fees that we pay our architects, and anything to do with sort of the design. And of course, governmental fees, you folks are certainly aware of that. We have a sewer agreement we've negotiated that is a big portion of that. Review fees from your reviewing engineers. Then we go down to our site cost. It's a fairly complicated site because of the shallow bedrock and some of the grading that has to go along with making all that work. So this is a little higher number than we typically see. And then our building is close to $3 million to build. There's a lot of specific things that go into building a childcare. We did try to put a fair amount of architectural detail into this building. I heard the board the first time that it looked maybe needed a little more calming down a bit, and I think we've done that. And then really the rest of these are just sort of cost to construct as far as overhead to general contractors and cost to get, really get open. So, we're into this project for close to $8 million at the end of the day. So it's just good to know kind of where the dollars go. Now, I did pull a couple things out of our pro forma, just so you can get an understanding. If you look at the occupancy that we are putting here at 55% occupied, you'll see, you don't make money. We lose money at 50% occupied based on how our pro forma works. That all ties into the fixed cost of labor, fixed cost of overhead for carrying the cost of the building, carrying, the annual cost, the debt service on it. That's really why we need a building that's larger to cover the total, the total input of cost into developing a childcare. And you'll see that a lot of our competitors are building similar sized buildings. We're not unique. And there's a reason for it, but I just wanted to share that so you realize that these are again, they're hypothetical numbers based on what we think we'll do and what we've done in the Massachusetts market previously in very similar demographics. And I was happy to share that. I'm cautious to share the upside because it never seems to be what we expect it to be. So that being said, are there any questions I can answer for anybody? Just based on just kind of very high level look at the numbers.
I just want to say thank you for providing this level of detail.
Of course.
It's really, really helpful. And I don't have any questions about it. Are there questions from board members? All right.
All right. Thank you very much. And I'm
Thank
here
you.
obviously for any other questions. I do want to mention too, I met with the neighbor adjacent, very nice gentleman. It's kind of an interesting subdivision back there behind where we are. He won't see a lot of our development, I think, at the end of the day, but our agreement is that we will certainly work with him if he feels like we're invading his privacy. I mean, and I know he's got sort of a path along his property where a lot of the kids that go to the school from those neighborhoods walk along there, and he wanted to make sure we preserve that, which we certainly will. But he was very reasonable to work with.
Sorry, can I ask you a question about that agreement? Is
Sure.
this a handshake agreement, or is there something that's in writing?
No, I offered, to be honest, to solidify something, and I think we spent probably an hour together and chatted about it all, and basically shook hands, and we trust each other. So
Okay.
I'm pretty good about following up with my agreements with people, and we're not gonna, if we're coming into the neighborhood as a new neighbor and a long-term neighbor, we're gonna do the right thing. So, and my track record is that as well. So, no, I don't have an agreement, not because I wouldn't have done one, more that he was satisfied with what we discussed.
And before we open it up to comments and questions from board members about the whole project, I would love to hear from planning staff about anything that you want us to be discussing and considering tonight.
Sure, thank you. There are a bunch of minor items. I think Mr. Drake indicated he would be willing to work with town staff to resolve those. The one thing that would be helpful from the board to get direction on for writing a decision would be whether or not to require the applicant to construct a sidewalk along the frontage. I know the applicant mentioned there wouldn't be any connections currently to any other sidewalks on the northern end of Mass Ave, but presumably one day there could be. So that might be something for the board to consider.
So that's it? Just those two things? Okay. I guess I want to start with board members' questions. And then if you don't cover my questions, I'll speak up. Dean?
Yeah, just a couple of observations. I think I understand the issue with trying to put a sidewalk along Mass Ave right directly in front of the building. There is a considerable grade issue there. There are some existing trees, and I think where there's, more than sufficient sidewalks on the other side of Mass Ave, and there are crosswalks and our RFB flashers in various locations, I'm not sure that another short section of sidewalk in front of the building would be that helpful. The other point that I'd raise in response to the comment about the impracticality of using the existing building, and, I've spoken to a lot of my constituents, and everybody says, well, it's a great-looking building, but obviously there's some issues with it. At our meeting back in March, we talked about another existing daycare center here in town that reused part of an old farmhouse down on Central Street. And I don't know if that's been followed up on at all, but I do know that that particular operation has had quite a few problems with trying to find an adequate and appropriate use for that existing building. They used it for some office space, and they've used it for some storage because of the fact that the building was built to residential standards, and it's quite old. They're actually starting off with a major reconstruction project. They actually approached the Community Preservation Committee a year ago for some pretty substantial money to try to fix that building up. Everybody wants historic preservation, but there's obviously a cost involved with it. And I think that particular building on Central Street actually is newer than this one here that we're talking about. So I'm sympathetic. I'm regretful that we're losing a really neat, iconic building in town, but I understand that the applicant's kind of up against it. Those are pretty much my own comments at this point.
All right, if I could just respond, Mr. Shard, I appreciate your commentary, and it may not look like it, but I mean, we do try to be preservationists where we can. And I don't know if you've ever walked that property. Maybe you have. There's a lot going on there from a post-improvement standpoint from when the house was built. There's a pretty sizable in-ground swimming pool that's right behind it. There was a garage that was built right adjacent to it. And the fact of the matter is Adam kind of hit it on the head, is that from a simple design standpoint, the finished floor of that building is just, we're never going to make that work without really making the whole site look very different. And it's really not practical. Money aside, the building itself just really isn't practical for any type of use. It's very chopped up inside. I've been through it a couple of times. We did try, so I just don't want the board to think that we didn't hear your comments. But it's going to be very difficult to make that reuse. Even if someone wanted to move it, I think it's going to be very difficult to do something with it that's going to be productive. But I do understand your heartfelt concerns on it, so I just wanted to respond. Thank you.
David?
Hi, I have a few things. First, I just wanted to mention on the HVAC, that's not this process, right? There's no concession to us for that. That's a separate bylaw that's under the auspices of a state law. It's just you can't build anything with fossil fuels in Acton new unless you get a waiver, but that's a completely separate process. It doesn't have anything to do with this process. Second thing I wanted to ask, Alyssa, you mentioned several things that were zoning related. Is that part of this process, or do they have to get a separate ZBA permission?
No, they're seeking relief from those zoning requirements from this process.
Right, that's what I thought. So
So
I knew
it
that
was the
parking came under this.
open space and the landscaping for parking and.
Understood.
I don't remember the others in the list.
My next topic is ADA. You said certain things were not possible to do under ABA, and you mentioned the parking spaces. I assume that's not the handicap parking spaces, right? They have to be basically level within code?
Correct. So the ADA, like the actual handicap parking spaces, have to be at 1.5%, which is practically dead level. But like your connection, your walkway from the road up to the building, like you would need that to be ADA compliant as well. So you would need it at like 4.5%, which going from the road to the existing building, you just could not do that without some sort of elaborate series of ramps. It just wouldn't be, feasible.
So the walkway that's in the plan now on the right side of the driveway as you face the building, that is ADA compliant.
Correct.
I understand. Thank you. The subsurface infiltration and pretreatment, where is the outflow from those, the overflow, outflow?
So it's not designed with an outflow, it's designed to infiltrate 100% up to the 100-year storm. But, you know, say we get a 200-year storm, it's designed to outflow through the lowest catch basin. In this case, it would outflow along Massachusetts Avenue at those grates.
Okay. And finally, I would be in favor of the sidewalk along Mass Ave. Basically, the western end of the frontage is across from Prospect Street, or across from the corner of Prospect Street. I think that's a useful place to have a sidewalk. I assume you all have been there when the junior high lets out. And so, all the sidewalks are covered with people. And so I think it would be good to have that. I mean, if the rest of the board members don't want that, you know, we have a process to contribute to the sidewalk fund. But I would be in favor of putting a sidewalk there. We have tons of sidewalks in town that have retaining walls on the back. All of my street has retaining walls on the back. So not literally all, almost all. So anyway, I think that the sidewalk there is a worthwhile thing, and I would like to see us do that.
I'm sorry, are you all set, Mr. Martin? Can I just respond? Look, we're not opposed to putting a sidewalk in. When you practically look at where it would go, there's some significant old-growth street trees that are going to have to be eliminated to do it. And that's my bigger concern. Building a small retaining wall and putting in a concrete sidewalk is not a problem. What I took away from the last meeting we were at was visibility of the building and landscaping and streetscape and trying to make, you know, the least amount of impact. So, I mean, I could certainly offer if we, you know, get under construction and, you know, it looks like I don't even want to call it feasible. I know it's feasible. It's a matter of what does the board want it to look like at the end of the day. And I'm happy to contribute to the sidewalk fund and work that out as well. But we're just trying to preserve some of the existing really mature landscaping that's out there. And I appreciate the safety concern, but we need direction as far as really what the total board wants us to do. And if it's deferral, it could be a deferral as well. So whatever the board would like. Thank you.
So I understand the tree issue, and as I said, if the rest of the board members are content with contribution to the sidewalk fund, I'm definitely willing to go along with that.
Fran, go ahead.
Thanks for the list of changes, or your list of items that you tackled. I still probably am one of the few that think this is the wrong parcel for this project. I've been to the Canton facility. I've seen a lot of the primroses around. Those were already existing buildings in, I don't know, commercial, more business zoned areas that might not have traffic problems. I know the one in Sudbury is very easy to get in and out of. I think that this parcel is just trying to be used for a certain purpose that you're trying to meet the needs instead of the parcel. So I don't know. those are my comments. They're not helpful at all, and I feel strongly about the old house on the property. I think that if it was, it's just,
Yeah, I mean, we totally appreciate your concern. And like we said, we're definitely open to working with Historic to put out ads. Ideally, someone wants to take it off our hands and relocate the building. But we feel that, along with the peer review letter, as well as the staff review, we feel like we're putting a good, safe, practical product on this property. We feel it works from an operational as well as an engineering point of view.
have you looked at other properties? I mean, there's the Saab dealership in Acton. I just think that this is not the place for a building of this magnitude.
Sure.
And I did want to have the comparison of the square footage of Canton and Sudbury as opposed to Acton. What is Acton's square footage?
14,000.
Can you just answer with your mics on, please?
Sorry. It's 14,000 gross. Just for comparison, the bylaw speaks to, I believe, net. So we'd have to net out the stairways and all the other areas that are included in the 14 gross to get to, the apples to apples number. It's obviously more than 2,500. But.
And I can address, have we looked at other, I'm sorry, do we need clarification on the square footages, or are you okay with the comparison on the square footages?
So Sudbury is a little bit smaller. They're 10,000, because 10,000 would even be better.
Well, and I think we need to keep in mind too that, it's 14,000 square foot, two-story building. So the footprint is much less than what Sudbury is on the ground. Again, some people like a single level looking building, some people like a two-story. We tried to design the site where, we tucked it in the corner. I think we've met the neighbors' concerns. From a grading perspective, you're not going to see much of the building from the neighbors because it's going to be sort of, below the hill, so to speak, when it's all said and done. I think the landscaping is going to buffer quite a bit from the street. We've tried to really make it an attractive building that, has to, it's a commercial style building to make it operate the way it needs to. But I think we've added a lot to it to make it look that way. I can't change how you feel, Ms. Arsenault, and I totally understand. I'm not discounting that at all, but I've probably looked at every parcel in Acton one time or another I've been with Primrose almost 11 years, and prior to that, I did childcare work for other providers, so I know the town pretty well. This is really the best fit for the economics and for reuse for us. But again, I don't want to ramble because I'm not going to change your mind, but I appreciate where you're coming from.
Madam Chair, just if it would be helpful, could I share my screen for one moment just to get back to the question of sidewalks?
Sure.
Oops. I have to send a request. Okay. So I just thought it'd be helpful for us to see the location in question. So this is the property. In terms of having a sidewalk across the street from this intersection, and again, as Matt said, we'll do what the board tells us, but that would mean cutting down this tree. It would also mean that the sidewalk ends about where that black car is, and you would be having middle school kids crossing the street at no crosswalk, presumably to get over here. Whereas if they come out of school, they can use the crosswalk and signage right here. It's a protected movement, and they're getting straight across to a sidewalk. So I just thought it would be helpful for the board to see those visuals.
Thank you. Nate, can you remind me, in addition to the sidewalk, what was the other item that you need us to weigh in on? Was it the parking proof plan?
Yes, if the board is inclined to grant certain waivers, that would, typically, the parking proof plan is required, but seeing as they probably couldn't prove that they could comply with the bylaw, we would just recommend waiving that as well.
Okay, thank you. Can you share again the plan of the layout of the site that shows the parking and the building footprint? Pam, you didn't have anything yet? All right, I'll go ahead. I'll come back to you. So my first question is about the location of the dumpster and specifically the angle of it. And it looks, I recall that we discussed having it be aligned so that a truck could come and pick it up and it needed to be straight and not at an angle. So can you just refresh my memory on that?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I don't recall exactly what you were referring to, but we did work with the peer review engineer to bring it out more, and we typically do it at that 45-degree angle, just to help kind of facilitate the front loaders coming in and going out. It just lets us keep it in a bit of a tighter profile, angling it like that.
And it does not block the parking space that it's next to?
That's correct. So, I'm sorry, these designated parking spaces here are all employee-only designated compact spaces. So if there was a slightly larger vehicle in that last parking spot, it may obstruct the front loader and they may have to wheel the baskets out by hand. But it is designed to theoretically not block them. In practice, maybe someone will back out or park a little more into the roadway. But we have coordinated this with the peer review engineer.
Okay, and you could remedy it operationally? Okay.
Correct.
This isn't really a question unless maybe you have a suggestion for improving this, but I really am concerned about the walkway for pedestrians from the sidewalk that goes along the east edge of the property through the middle of the parking lot. That does not seem safe to me. So I don't know whether or not there's a safer option for locating that walkway.
Yeah, so our challenge here, again, goes back to the existing grading of the site. In order to keep it at an ADA compliant slope, we do have to take that long way around and cut through the striped area of the parking lot. So if we want to keep it ADA compliant, there really isn't a great way around.
It can't be north of the parking spaces that are at the north side of the site?
Then you're really running into the retaining wall there, and we don't have room to adjust that, unfortunately.
I think the other concern would be that people being busy and, reality being what it is, if we tell people to go all the way around and come back, they're going to cut through where it is anyway, but there won't be a crosswalk. It won't be striped. So I really think it'll be safer as proposed.
If I could add to, Madam Chair, I know we went through this on our last hearing, but, our pickup and drop-off scenario, really, the people using this sidewalk are really not going to be patrons of the school. I mean, I can't think of, on a regular basis, I should say, I just can't think of a place that we've developed where parents have walked their kids. Now, I could be entirely wrong here in Acton, but that is very unlikely to happen the way we structure our program. But maybe there's a few neighborhood people that would. If there's some additional signage that we might want to add at the crosswalk area, or really stripe it in a way where it becomes very obvious to look for pedestrians. We already have on-site speed limit signs, reminding people to pay attention and slow down, and, it's sort of there's a whole Primrose kind of sign package that goes along with that. I'm all for safety, trust me, but I don't think this is going to get used on a regular basis with moms pushing strollers. Maybe I'm wrong, but I've not seen it in a suburban kind of setting like this in most of the schools I've developed. But I think we can probably do a better job of at least identifying that there's a crosswalk there and making it very, very obvious with maybe some more bold striping or, again, additional signage. But I think trying, as my colleagues have said, running that sidewalk up and around the loop all the way around, we can do it, but I think they're going to take the least, or they take the easiest path if they take it at all. But just my commentary, but thank you.
All right, I appreciate that. I mentioned back in February that I think this location is pretty unusual in that it's adjacent to a school campus. There are two elementary schools, the junior high and the high school right there. And the Kelly's Corner Infrastructure Improvement Project has focused not only on getting traffic to move more smoothly and safely through that intersection, but also to greatly enhance the walkability. It's very clear that that's one of the town's highest priorities, is improving walkability where we can. We can't do it everywhere. But that area, as David mentioned, is full of pedestrians. And with a new childcare facility, I can only imagine that folks from the Spencer Tuttle Flint neighborhood, from Minuteman Ridge, and even over in West Acton Village would be walking down to that site, and maybe even around the corner from the multifamily housing that we have on Main Street. And I am extremely concerned with the safety. I know that you did a traffic study. It was back in April before the Charter Road Mass Ave signal went in, so it mentions that is unsignalized. It mentions the number of lanes, which have doubled on both Mass Ave. Well, not doubled, but an additional lane has been added, a turn lane on Mass Ave, and also maybe there was always one on Charter. I'm not remembering. But just the traffic that moves through there now moves through there differently, in a different pattern than it did when the traffic study was conducted. And I'm pretty familiar with drop-off and pickup time in this location, as I'm sure other board members, members of the public are as well. I think that the Prospect Mass Ave has a grade of F right now. I don't see that improving. I'm concerned that when people are on Prospect and wanting to turn left onto Mass Ave, they're not going to be able to see the traffic coming out of this proposed driveway because at the specific drop-off and pickup times, because the traffic is backed up along Mass Ave. So you're not going to be able to see over the line of cars to be able to see adequately any vehicles that would come out of this proposed driveway. And it's extraordinarily close to the junior high driveway as well. So even with a right turn only, as recommended by GCG, I still think that there are too many points of conflict for both vehicles and pedestrians. And there are just hundreds and thousands of students who are walking around that campus. So I agree with David that a sidewalk to the west of the driveway, I understand that we would lose trees, But as David mentioned, eventually, even if the sidewalk ends and it's not connecting to another sidewalk in the future, there could be an extension of that sidewalk. There could be an additional crosswalk. I'm also very concerned, not traffic maneuvering, but the slope of the proposed driveway. And in the wintertime, water sheeting off of the driveway, potentially freezing. I know we have to get a certain percentage of the slope in order to prevent cars from sliding into traffic. So the traffic safety is particularly concerning to me. And I appreciate that Fran asked if you had looked at other locations, because it seems like this one is very, very challenging. The shallow bedrock, the topography of the site that has to be engineered, and 2 retaining walls, one at the back of the site, one at the front of the site. The trees have to be clear cut. There are other properties in Acton which are similar size, but in, a different location. Fran mentioned a dealership, but actually, one location that I think would be much better than this is in Kelly's Corner proper, not just outside of Kelly's Corner, but the property that is about the same acreage. I think it's 1.5 acres or 1.4 acres behind the CVS and TD North Bank. It's already clear cut. There's a big pile of rubble, but that could be removed. The intersection is already signalized. If I were a parent dropping off my children at this center, it would be so frustrating to be coming out of this center after drop-off or pickup and then having to turn right and then left on Prospect when the traffic is backed up on Mass Ave, and then try and get back to Route 2 or back through Kelly's Corner by going all the way down. It's just, I feel like your clients are going to be very frustrated and inconvenienced by this location. So I keep hearing that, the house that is not, it's interfering with the optimal site plan. I think that the site is not an optimal site for this center, although, a commercial center like this is definitely a need in this community. There are wait lists for our childcare centers, and I feel really strongly that there should be a diverse mix, home daycares, the centers that we have in the churches that are close by, like Mount Calvary and Beth Elohim, as well as a large commercial center like this. Families need options and they need childcare spots. So I'm just really frustrated because it's very concerning to me that there's so many challenges with this site that we're just not able to work out in an ideal way. But I definitely want to get to yes for a childcare center in Acton, certainly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate your sentiments. I guess I want to offer a few things. First of all, we've been working with Primrose for a long time. They don't go out and look for the most challenging sites. I mean, they're years into this project. As you know, we've negotiated a memorandum of agreement with, asking them to start over and do a new site acquisition process and come back. It's just not possible. They got the site under agreement that they could find that was available that would meet their needs. They weren't looking for the most difficult site. They weren't looking to find a site where they'd be knocking down a historic structure. But this is sort of where we are. I think we've really been mindful of the board's comments on traffic and pedestrian walkways and the like. And I think we've made the project better. I think we've made a lot of progress. I do want to say that, you mentioned that town council had sent the AG's guidance. Traffic is not legally within the board's purview. Traffic safety, parking is, and I don't say that, I'm not, giving the board the Heisman. I just want to sort of help to set the scope of permissible review under the law. So in terms of the sidewalk, I guess maybe a compromise. Look, if you want us to cut down the tree and put in the sidewalk, we'll do it. My suggestion, I mean, I'd really be worried about people walking, getting to the end of the sidewalk and having nowhere to go except across Mass Ave at no crosswalk. So maybe a compromise would be that if and when the town installs sidewalks that reach that point, at that point, we'd be obligated to put in the sidewalk, just an idea. I also did want to get back, I think maybe it was Ms. Arsenal's question about the net floor area. There is a net floor area exhibit in the application materials. The net floor area of the 14,000 square feet of gross floor area, the net floor area is 10,050 square feet. So you really do lose a lot having it on 2 floors. So it's at the lowest end of some of the other.
Yeah, Fran?
Thank you. So Canton School, which was an old tech school, is on 14,000. It's 14,000, right? Gross.
Are you referring to the Canton location?
No, I'm stuck on Canton, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. No, just want to make sure.
And it was already an existing tech school.
Right.
On quite frankly, a much larger site, just.
It is somewhat, I've seen it, it's a huge
much-
site.
And it very, honestly, talk about trying to find like the ideal real estate, like that comes about as close as to finding the ideal real estate that's available, that's not under agreement to another entity.
Right.
I'd love to come into any community and pick the parcel we'd love to develop. The problem is we just don't have that liberty to do it because we're competing with every other business to be in the best location. So I want to echo John's sentiments that challenging sites are not interesting to anybody, but when you're left with what you can work with and you can make it work and be safe, safety is paramount for us too. It's just realized, and I'm sure you guys do, I know it's an intelligent group, but you have to be in the right place at the right time to procure the property that you need. Canton's a very good example. We were right place, right time. It was in receivership, like we were there. Mm-hmm. And, a month later, we wouldn't have been. So that's just the luck of the draw sometimes, but.
Let me just, sorry, Fran.
It's okay.
Let me just get us back to what we do have purview over in terms of the Dover Amendment. So the bulk and height of structures, yard sizes, lot area, setbacks, open space, parking, and building coverage. So we probably are better off focusing on something like building coverage and the fact that, this building occupies so much area of the parcel is better than looking at comparable square footage. The comparable square footage in other centers was provided to show us the reason that financially it wouldn't be feasible to make the project smaller. And then, Mr. Silverstein, you also mentioned the traffic safety, so I want to get to public comment, but before I do, I just want to make a mention to staff that I would like clarification on our mandatory findings, because one of the items that the board does need to find is that this project provides for convenient and safe vehicular and pedestrian movement, and that the locations of driveway openings are convenient and safe in relation to vehicular and pedestrian traffic circulation, including emergency vehicles on or adjoining the site. So that's a mandatory finding, and I would like to know how that relates to the Dover Amendment, because it's not one of the 8 items that's listed in the AG's guidance. So it doesn't have to be tonight, but definitely before we make a decision. And I do want to get to public comment, but go ahead.
Oh, so I was just going to kind of address some of your concerns with the traffic
Oh, okay.
and the safety, if we have time. So I know you were saying they recently changed one of the intersections down the road to be signalized and increased the lanes. So we are still in permitting with Mass DOT. We've since issued our 25% revisions. So we are expecting additional comments back anytime now. But any sort of update like that would need to be made to the traffic report we will make, and we'll ensure that Mass DOT gets the, updated materials. And then again, with kind of driveway slope, positioning on the property, again, that's something that Mass DOT is going to review themselves and ensure is safe. Oftentimes, they'll have us adjust either the radii, which we've already increased for Mass DOT just to ensure, there's enough movement in and out for, the passengers there. And then again, just circling back to the steepness of the driveway, I know that was a concern that was brought up a few times. So I know in the peer review letter, they do mention how they are concerned that we're on the upper end of acceptable slopes. But I would like to note that they also comment we're within the acceptable range of approvable slopes. So we do have that 20-foot leveling area for cars to safely stop. And then we are at I believe, 8.5%, 9%, which is in the acceptable range per the local ordinance.
Thank you. Can you also, since your update, I wasn't aware that you were updating any traffic information. The vehicular count, there's no date when the Mass Ave vehicular count daily was provided by Mass DOT, and it was 46 or 4,700. And that seems very, very low to me, because I'm on School Street and we've got at least 5,000, and that was, like 5 or 6 years ago. So just make sure that we have a date and the most updated number of vehicles on that road every day.
Okay, yeah, I'll touch base with our traffic team and make sure the board gets, any updated materials that come out of that.
Thank you. And Dean, did you have something before we go to public comment?
Yeah, just addressing the issue with the access sidewalk and the access way across the parking lot. Based on my personal experience with a daycare center of about half the size of this, located at 278 Great Road, has since closed. This was something about 20 years ago. But I had a discussion with the operator of that facility tonight over supper. And she made the observation that in 15 or so years of running that facility, which is within sight of many multifamily homes, they did not have a single person show up on foot pushing a stroller to drop a child off. We can all regret that this is an auto-centric town, but it is an auto-centric town. And I don't think you should get fixated too much about somebody walking across the parking lot and getting run over, because I think there are very few folks who are actually going to bring a child there. Most of them are going to be by car. I live at the other end of Charter Road, and I can personally attest that it's just about impossible to get through that intersection of Hayward and Charter, because everybody drives their kid to high school. And those are kids that are capable of walking as opposed to some kid in a stroller. So I agree with the applicant that it's probably going to be, there could certainly be a few people, but I think it would sort of be the exception to actually see parents pushing their kids into this thing with a stroller from the street.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'd like to see it, don't get me wrong.
Me too. All right, thank you for that, Dean. Are there folks in the room first? I know we have some raised hands online. Yeah, so there's a mic at the podium. If anybody wants to provide some public comment, if you can just turn on the mic with the button and state your name and street address for us.
So my name is Ron Laughlin. I'm the abutter that Matt spoke to. Everything you said is right. That's the way I remembered it. So a handshake agreement, we're going to live up to it. Quick question, can you just talk a little bit about the grading you're going to do and how that's going to be adjusted? Because my understanding is going to be dropped significantly, and I just would love to hear your comment on that, if possible. Yep.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. So, the grading around the property line is going to remain just because, for obvious reasons, you can't grade outside of your property. And then you can see we're proposing a retaining wall around the north that wraps down west. So that's going to be a cut wall. It's going to cut approximately 6 feet, and then it'll be relatively level and follow the existing grade as best we can. There's not going to be a really large cut here just for the fact that we are shallow to bedrock. So I don't have the earthwork calculations in front of me, but I don't think we're cutting more than 6 feet really in any one particular area. I think we are, maintaining existing grade, as best as we can.
Any other public comment in the room?
Good evening, Robert Janishek. I'm a butter to the abutter, so 465 Mass Ave. Again, just getting out in the morning when school's trying to get onto that street is just brutal. And having it this facility right across from Prospect Street, I think represents a huge challenge. Can it be overcome? Sure. Relative to the comment, relative to the walkway, I think it makes maybe more sense to put in another crosswalk to get over to the walkway that already exists. Otherwise, you're putting another walkway on a side of the street that doesn't have anything right now. My 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments in the room?
I'm David Winders. I live at 461 Mass Ave and have for 50 years. From the outset, my concern with this project is how over 100 vehicles are going to arrive at the site of the proposed facility. I understand the numbers are 77 children and 40 staff. I haven't heard anybody explain how the 77 vehicles are going to enter the site and then exit the site. They approach the site from 3 directions. I don't know the average length of a vehicle, but I don't know how many vehicles could drive up to the facility and then a child gets sick or a car breaks down. What's going to happen to all the vehicles behind it? Again, traffic arriving from 3 directions. Has a traffic study been done? It has. Has the response been made public?
Yes, you can find it in the meeting packet.
Thanks. As I say, I've lived at 461 Mass Ave, or the house next door, for 50 years. I walk the neighborhood. I am very familiar with the neighborhood. About 10 days ago, I pulled into my driveway, got out of the car, and went to the mailbox. What I didn't realize was that my neighbor was coming from West Acton and was waiting to turn into the driveway also. By the time I figured it out, there had to be 8 vehicles behind him. And that was at 8:30 in the morning. So, to me, there are many questions that are unanswered here with regard to the traffic. So I trust that you will look into it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment from the room before we go online?
call in user 1.
Hi, yes, this is Tara from Pura Mascot. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I don't see the cut wall. I hope you don't approve before seeing that. I hope you require another sewer hearing because it looks like it's a new project. If you decide to approve, please approve only for the 11,500 square foot model, since that's what the applicant has already determined is economically feasible. Please make them try harder. The DRB memo was based on prior designs and without the benefit of the applicant's comparisons. I hope the Select Board relies on the DRB's opinion of the applicant's claim. Please don't make a move without checking with them. Sidewalk, at least make sure there's a sidewalk from the junior high driveway. Grandparents picking up children, walking, there's more walking these days. Not only the growing environmental concern, but more housing at Kelly's Corner and the cost of gas from tariffs and war. One person matters. I urge you to outright deny this permit, or at the very least, continue the hearing and get DRB opinions on the applicant's claims regarding economic viability. I agree with the concerns about the intersection safety. This is the wrong site for such a huge building. I urge you to deny this application on the basis it's too big, and results in too many problems. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kim Davis, you just have to unmute.
Yeah, hi, it's Neil Davis. I had actually written an email that's in the file, but it's all about traffic in this area. I mean, the time it takes to come out of Minuteman Ridge and get to Route 2 is off the charts, especially during pickup and drop-off hours. So adding this many car trips to this location is just gonna, it's gonna push traffic all the way back into West Acton. And I mean, I disagree with Selectman Charter saying nobody walks their kids to school. I mean, go up to West Acton in the afternoon and see how many strollers you see going to any one of the child care places. There's strollers all over the place. So, I mean, our biggest concern is traffic in the area. Prospect Street is not the easiest place to cross, especially when school's getting out. So that's the biggest concern.
Thank you.
That's it, Madam Chair.
All right, I think that we need a continuation, unless there are any other comments from board members. David?
Could you say what we're waiting on the continuation?
A decision to be written? Or you think we're ready to vote?
No, I was just asking.
Oh.
So there is no draft decision at this point?
There is no draft decision at this point. And I guess maybe before we continue it, we should come to a decision about how we feel about the sidewalk to the west of the proposed driveway, and also whether or not we are fine with waiving the parking proof. That's something that I'm fine with. And then there was another suggestion from planning staff to require some landscaping, so we could provide that direction to be incorporated into a decision in front of the retaining wall. Any thoughts on those? David?
I still have a small preference for the sidewalk. I'm not at all concerned that there's no crosswalk crossing Mass Ave near one of the Prospect corners. Adding a crosswalk there is not a problem. We had lighted crosswalks or even just non-lighted crosswalks all the time. I don't see that there are any sightline problems at that intersection. I don't see that there's a problem adding a crosswalk, and it would split the traffic, the pedestrian and bicycle traffic. Most of the students that ride to school, I think, Dean might be right, very few people drop their baby or toddler via stroller. But at school start and departure times, that area is very, very busy. And one of the key questions in the recent elementary school reorganization was where would residents have the right to have their children walk to the various elementary schools. And so that was a big issue. And so you see walkers and motorized scooters and all things there all the time. Anyway, it would split the traffic, so if someone going southwest on, on the south side and the west direction of Mass Ave, they could come out of the junior high, go down to the end of the sidewalk, cross Mass Ave once, only cross one street, and then they're where they want to go, or on the west side of Prospect. And as opposed to right now, they have to cross Mass Ave and Prospect. So I think there's an advantage there, and we're adding sidewalks all the time. I'm not saying that the other side of Mass Ave is a high priority sidewalk, but at some point in the future of Acton, they might add a sidewalk on the north side of Mass Ave, and so I think that's worthwhile. However, if all of you are okay, to prefer to do the sidewalk fund, it's not a make or break for me.
Yes, Pam.
On the sidewalk, I would be in favor of adding the sidewalk if it's possible to have the crosswalk markings at the end of it. I would not be in favor of having a sidewalk that just ends without any markings across the road, at least at this period of time. It's hard to take down a large tree in that area, but I think improving that walkability would be really important as long as people could safely cross.
And if you don't mind me mentioning, that is a Mass DOT road, so to put any sort of striping like that across, we would have to go through them for approval.
Thank you for that reminder. Fran, I think, Dean, you mentioned you were not in support of a sidewalk. I don't know that I heard you weigh in on that.
I am not so much worried about the sidewalk as much as, school children are, as you've shown, funneled down to the other crosswalk and crossed over to the sidewalk. But what I am concerned about is a smaller building size. Is there any way that you can have this a one-story? I mean, Sudbury, you could have made it a two-story. That lot, kind of welcomes that. So I just don't understand why we need that second story on this size lot.
I'm
Sorry.
actually going to move us to giving direction to our planning staff, because we do have another hearing, and it's almost 8. So it sounds like most of us are in support of a sidewalk with a crosswalk, understanding that it takes Mass DOT's approval. And I just want to be clear that I am concerned more so with the potential future attendees of the child care center than the students that are coming from the schools, because they do have that side, that crosswalk that they're using right now. I think if you're coming from Spencer Tuttle, Flint, or Minuteman Ridge, or West Acton Village, to go up to that crosswalk, cross over, and then go across the driveway of the junior high, and then up the sidewalk to I think that's a lot. And that would not encourage folks to arrive with strollers or on bicycles or walking. So I think that, I guess we should take a vote and have a motion. So I move that we,
Maybe, Madam Chair, it's
Yes.
odd to have a vote here. What, you could just ask for
Okay.
a sense of.
in the decision, can you condition the sidewalk to the west of the driveway instead of a contribution to the sidewalk fund.
Yes, and we can also work with DOT on the crosswalk too.
Okay, thank you. Yep, what is it? And is anybody opposed to waiving the requirement for the parking proof plan? Okay. And if we are going to take down a tree, I think it's even more important to have the landscaping in front of the retaining wall, which is a recommendation from planning staff. So I'm seeing nods. Okay. So is that clear enough, Nate? Okay. Yes, John?
Yeah, so the intent is to continue the public hearing, or are you going to close it?
Are you all ready to vote, or I'd rather see the decision before we close the hearing, because there might be more questions, more information that we would like to get. And there might be more comments that come in from members of the public. I don't know that DRB is going to review this again with the updated plans. That is their prerogative to do so.
Madam Chair, can I just be clear that?
Yeah.
Is the board looking for anything else from us? Do we have any deliverables? I haven't heard any, but I just want to make sure.
I haven't heard any either, but thank
Okay.
you for checking. All right, so we just need a date and a time certain.
Madam Chair, we recommend June 1st at 6:30 for a continued hearing.
I move to continue this hearing until June 1st at 6:30 in this room.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to continue the hearing to June 1st at 6:30. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you so much for all of the information and all of the time, and we will see you back here on the 1st. Thank you, Nate. All right, thank you for the folks who have waited a very long time for the 6:45 PM hearing. I'll go ahead and read the legal notice. The Acton Select Board will hold a public hearing on May 18th, 2026 at 6:45 PM, continued from April 27th, 2026, at Acton Town Hall, Room 204, 472 Main Street, and remotely by video conference and call-in on the application of NSTAR Electric Company doing business as Eversource Energy for an installation of 16 poles on Quarry Road, easterly side, approximately 2,420 plus or minus feet north of Main Street. From a computer, enter in the link ID actonma.gov/meeting/SB, or from a telephone dial 646-876-9923 and enter in the webinar ID 503-918-785. Telephone users may dial *9 to request to speak after joining the meeting. Computer and app users may use the raise hand feature to request to speak. And our applicant is online? Perfect.
Yes, Madam Chair. Christine Cosby, I just unmuted you. Christine, you just have to unmute on your end.
This is Christine Crosby from Eversource. I don't know if I'm unmute. Oh, okay.
Yep, we can hear you, Christine. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. You want me to,
I would love you to describe the proposal. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, we're requesting permission to install 16 poles in Quarry Road, and their pole numbers would be 91/20 through 91/35. And the purpose of the pole installations would be to extend the overhead power line down the road in order to service a new development at 123 Quarry Road. It's a five lot residential development.
Sounds good. Getting power to those homes. And also, thank you very much for working with town staff to come up with the ideal location for the poles. I don't have any questions or comments, but any from the other board members? Dean?
Yeah, I've got the engineering department memo about this. They've adapted sort of a zigzag pattern of putting the poles and running the wires diagonally across portions of the street. This is consistent with what they did some years ago when they installed the poles along the existing Quarry Road up as far as the existing residences. And they were able to save a lot of trees at that point. And this was kind of what I was asking for when we heard this a few weeks ago. So I think it looks like a good plan, and looking at the engineering department review, it looks like they're happy with it, so I'd be all set to move to accept.
Do you want to expand on that motion?
I move that I don't have the motion in front of me, but I would move that the select board approve the petition of Eversource Energy for the installation of 16 poles on Quarry Road as per the approved plan and as per the engineering department memo dated May 14th, 2026.
Second.
I was just going to ask if there's any public comment or comment from the town manager.
There is public comment.
Call-in user 1, you're unmuted.
No, just Tara, we're hoping that they ask the DRB for an opinion on the new information from the 457 applicant. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments about this agenda item? Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to approve the application. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any, oh, sorry. Do we need to withdraw the, okay.
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we've closed the public hearing, and now to the previous motion to approve the installation of these 16 poles on Quarry Road. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And abstentions? All right, it passes unanimously, and I believe our last agenda item is number 5. Oh, thank you, Kristen. Sorry, I forgot to say bye and thank you. I'm new at this. All right, number 5 on our agenda is update on progress of the 2025 Select Board goals and also a discussion of the 2026 goal-setting process.
Yeah, so would you like to talk about the process first or the recap of 2025? Okay, so as you recall, just under a year ago, the board established several goals. There were 5 short-term and 8 long-term, and they've been posted on the town website. We published them in the budget documents. We publish them in the town meeting warrant. They're really a part of all the policy documents that we try to follow. So just quickly running through them. The first one was to finalize and secure funding for the Town Hall HVAC project. Town meeting, first of all, we got a grant for $1 million, and then town meeting approved overwhelmingly the funding that we requested to do this project. So I would call that goal accomplished. It doesn't say build the project, but we can do that afterwards, but I think this goal has been completed. The second goal was related to advancing participation in town meeting and basically trying some new things to try to get more people to town meeting. This year, we only had about 420 or so people at town meeting, so it wasn't one of the more widely attended meetings, but I think the people who were there were very well informed, and I think that was in part to the outreach and education efforts that were undertaken by both the select board members individually and at the meeting that night, and also several public forums that were held both on particular articles and on town meeting in general. We also tried a few different social media ideas to catch a few people's attention. Always room to improve, but I think we made some progress on this one as well. The third one is create a communications position to improve community engagement. In the budget, we did not propose a new position. That's not something that we do unless there are no other options. We did identify a few other options. One of them was to secure a grant through the utility companies for an energy outreach person, which we were able to do. We have Sophia, who works for us. She's under a 3-year contract, funded by National Grid and Eversource, and she does a lot of work on energy outreach, but she also does a lot of work on general town outreach and communication. She's taken over the production and editing of the monthly newsletter that we do, and she's providing support to several departments with social media content. So I think a big win there without any investment. We also reorganized a few staff positions to free up resource for some outreach, an outreach position in the Economic Development Office, part-time. So again, not a new position, reorganizing existing staffing to try to assign someone to that role. We just completed the recruitment process, and we're trying to finalize the hire for that role. So we should have someone on board this summer. So we didn't create a full-time communications director, which I think a lot of communities of our size and scale of organization have those now, but we've made some progress. Do you want me to keep going, or do you want to talk about any of these? Okay. Oh, all right. The fourth bullet was to bring DPW facility project to town meeting and work with the finance committee and other committees to move the project forward. I would say that goal has been accomplished. We brought it to town meeting after working extensively with the finance committee and other town committees. And town meeting overwhelmingly supported a request to start or finish the new design for the DPW facility. So that goal, I think, we were able to accomplish as well. The fifth bullet was to complete study and begin implementation of fire EMS deployment and staffing study, including a capital plan for fire station upgrades or replacement. This one's pretty complex. We did get a grant to do a study. The study should have already been delivered to us by now. The Collins Center has just given us a draft within the last few weeks. They had a transition in the project team, which kind of slowed them down. But we did the pilot study. We put all the firefighters and EMTs in 2 stations for 3 months, and it worked out okay, and we learned some things about it. Then we moved them into 3 stations, leaving the center open, or vacant rather. And we did that for 3 months, and we learned some things. And right now, we're operating out of 3 stations with West Acton vacant. It's currently being, there's some construction work going on there. So that's why, one of the reasons why we're not using it. But I think what we found so far is having 3 stations, one in North Acton, just off Main Street, one in the center, just off Main Street, and one in the south, just off Main Street, has worked out pretty well in terms of coverage. In the report that we'll get from the Collins Center, you'll find that there's not a lot of data showing groundbreaking analysis that is going to shock everybody. I think there's still more work to do to determine how the response times actually are improved. We know for certain that the response time of the second due. So when there's a scene, and this is just a fire, right? So medical calls are different, but when there's a fire call, you need more than 2 people to handle it. And in the past, we were running apparatus with just 2 people on them. by consolidating the stations a little bit, we're able to have, in some cases, 3 people on a piece, and in most cases, a group of people able to respond quickly, more quickly, so that we have more resources on site to fight a fire. So we did, and the study will show that our ability to fight a fire by having more people on scene was improved in the pilot, but there are trade-offs. So I think in the end, it's going to come down to the other part of this goal, which is the capital infrastructure. There isn't a measurable advantage to having 4 stations over 3. There's not, and there's not a measurable disadvantage. So I think it comes down to, do we want to maintain as a community 4 fire stations? And it's a lot. We have a brand new one up in North Acton. We have 3 that are about of the same age. We're replacing the roof on South Station and Center. We're replacing the roof on a few of them, but in the end, we're going to need to invest in all 3 of them in the next 10 years. So I think more work is to be done on this goal, but I think we've made a lot of progress. The fire department, the chief, the deputy chief, and the fire union also has been pretty engaged with this in the last year. And if the study isn't perfect, it'll still provide us with some data to use as we make decisions going forward. Long-term, our assessor did look at a new tax relief program based on multifamily apartments, and I think is still studying that and looking at how that's working and other, before he brings forward any proposal. We continue to try to highlight the tax relief programs that we have in place. The chair referenced it at the town meeting, the fact that our exemptions that we offer to residents are much higher than our peer communities. And our assessor's office does a really nice job of trying to spread the word. So again, more work can be done on that, certainly, but we're going to continue doing that. The next one is starting a yearly Porch Fest concert series for West Acton. Our Economic Development Office has been very busy this year. I know that Patricia, our director, Patricia Costa, is interested in this, but there are also several things that we've asked her to work on before this became a goal. So I don't think she's been able to really focus on this just yet. But as it's a long-term goal, I think we're on target. Continuing the Main Street intersection, complete streets improvements projects. I think this is something that we got $1 million in grant funding to do Central Street Central Street where it meets Main Street, near the train station. The commuter rail parking lot to Main Street, we got $1 million to do that over. That work will be happening once we finalize some of the design elements. Hayward, we haven't done much with that one. It didn't make it to the capital plan this year. I think we have a lot going on Main Street, and so we wanted to make sure that how everything looks before, and then we heard that the state's maybe putting a rotary in front of Acton Medical, so I think we definitely know that this is an intersection that needs an improvement, and we know that a light is what the board supported and what we've designed, but in terms of finding funding for it, we haven't been able to secure grant funding, and it hasn't risen to the top in our local capital planning process just yet. The other streets, we just did some pedestrian ramps on High Street last week, so we're continuing that work. Let's see, what else we have? Working with the Volunteer Coordinating Committee to create a plan for volunteer recruitment and onboarding that includes improved orientation, streamline, and reappointment process. So Jim Snyder Grant, who just resigned from the board or left at the end of his term, was the liaison to the Volunteer Coordinating Committee. He worked a lot with them and with the town clerk's office to straighten out a lot of the back office stuff about the recruitment process, but I don't think the onboarding process or the orientation hasn't had any measurable improvements yet, but we're working on it. I think having the VCC fully staffed has been an issue with working with them because they're having trouble meeting, but I think we sorted that out, and we'll continue to make improvements there. Please.
Just wanted to provide one more update to that long-term goal. The board approved a survey that Jim and I worked on, so that will give us some information that will guide us in how we might improve the process, including orientation, the reappointment process. So that just needs to be published. David.
And also, the VCC took one step in allowing an individual VCC member to interview a candidate and report back to the whole board, which simplified the scheduling and everything for those interviews. So that's a good step already done.
The next long-term goal references advancing efforts to establish a public art plan and initiatives that utilize the arts to improve outcomes for economic development and public health. I would say that we're doing this on several fronts. Using capital funding approved a few years ago and a grant received from MAPC, where in the finishing parts of a public art plan and an inventory, and we finished mural projects that were started a few years ago. We finally were able to get those installed this year. And the festival planned for May 30th, which I should have mentioned earlier, there will be a community wellness event at Gould's Plaza on May 30th. And there'll be a pretty interesting arts component to that, where there'll be some local artists creating I don't know if the right word is mural, but creating an art project that involves many people's work being put together in some sort of fashion, like a mosaic or some other way of arranging it. So we're trying to really push the arts. We think, I'm not sure that we've done much with public health and the arts, but we're trying to get it going with economic development and community and building community. And I think there are some private and nonprofit groups that are doing a pretty good job of that already in town, and we're just trying to collaborate with them and support them. We put a lot of support into the book festival a few weeks ago, the art graphic novel festival rather, and things like that. So we're working on it. Stormwater infrastructure plan. We have funding in the budget to do a stormwater infrastructure plan, but we have the benefit of the RAC spending a good amount of time last year doing a study of their own, and they presented results to the select board over the winter. And I think it lays a table for what the board wants to do next. I think the goal setting coming up next month would be a good opportunity to understand whether this is going to make it into a more shorter term goal or remains long term, because we know it's a need. It's just one of many needs, and if the board prioritizes this more urgently, I think that more will happen with that. The next one is facilitate a low-income community solar and research the potential of including this as part of a lower tier in the Acton Power Choice program. I think we did this. It's pretty confusing and complex, but one of the benefits of the project that we just had a celebration for last week at the WR Gray site, where the new solar farm and battery farm is that a portion of that project will be used to fund community solar. And it's hard. I don't know that I'd be able to explain it, but I know that we've accomplished it, and it's eventually going to benefit. It's going to benefit a few hundred residents in town that that are on a lower tier utility bill, and they'll see pretty significant savings. So it's a win. It's a win that's hard to celebrate because I think it's hard to explain, but once we were able to, we will. And then the final one is research and develop a proactive strategy for gas line replacement, repair, and non-pipeline alternatives. This is something that's ongoing. Former select board member Jim Snyder Grant was taking the lead on that. I believe he passed on that work to one of you, the chair. And there's been some action in that within the last week. There was a meeting, there was a regional meeting. Okay, well, that's, I didn't want to say it.
I was
didn't wanna say
in a
anything.
meeting with engineering and sustainability staff, but if he passed it on to you, that makes me very happy.
In any event, this is something that is still being worked on by staff and at least one board member.
Thank you so much. I know that we have heard many times this year updates on progress, on goals, pretty much every budget presentation, I think, but it is nice before we go into the next year's goal-setting process to review where we are and which ones we can check off. So I guess before I describe the process, does anybody have any questions for John about progress? No. I do have a couple of questions, and you might not be able to answer them tonight, but I'm just curious about the timeline for the report from the Collins Center on the fire station deployment. And the work, the timeline for the West Acton station. I'm just wondering if that work is completed before we get the report or before we make a decision about how we move forward with the number of stations. Is there a plan currently to move folks back into that station once the work is complete?
So I think that during the budget process, the fire chief, Anita Arm, I think said several times that she believes that it's working on 3 stations and that she believes that we need more staffing to run effectively out of 4 stations. I mean, I think the previous fire chief probably thought that too, but we put him in 4 stations because we had to. So I think we'll do whatever we have to do, but I think it's her understanding and belief that to be able to run effectively out of 4, we would need more staffing, which, as you know, it wasn't proposed in the budget. So we are, though, in an interesting place from a staffing standpoint that we have almost all the shifts full and up to 10, where we haven't had in a long time. We actually have budget 11. So if we actually got 11 people on every shift, I think we can take a look at how things are going. But I think for now, even when we get the report back, I believe that the chief is interested in continuing running out of 3. But it's something that we'll discuss as part of that presentation. I do think it's not going to be before your goal setting. Well, it could be if you want it to be, but at this point,
just curious.
Yeah. No, at this point, I don't think we're on that schedule to be able to get it published before the 8th. But this summer, definitely.
Okay, and the other question I had was about the long-term goal to create a porch fest. Is that entirely a municipal event, or are there organizations in town that we could partner with so that maybe our staff time and our expenses cut at least a little bit, but maybe even significantly? I've never been to a porch fest. My daughter goes to them all the time in Somerville, but I just don't know who's paying for them. I know they have them in West Concord, too.
And this was something that was one of my select board goals. So I'm trying to work with Patricia and figuring that component out and when it would happen and some musicians in town and what that kind of would look like.
And do you know if there's ever another source of revenue and support to lower the cost for the town?
That I don't know. Yeah.
I would just say that we haven't costed it out in terms of what it would actually cost. I think, as I mentioned, we had this economic development plan just published this summer. We had some pretty significant economic development issues that we were focused on, and since the urgency, we were able to gauge the urgency on this one by where it was placed, and so we haven't really dove into it yet. But if it's on the short term, this next go-around, we'll dive right in. If not, it's going to be something that we keep working in the background. I mean, to be honest, I mean, there's so many priorities that we need to try to address that this is a big effort, and having someone from the outside take it on would be great, but it's just hard to, like the film festivals. Someone comes in and does that, right? So if someone comes in and does this, then we'd be happy to support it. But
Thank you for that. Yeah, and I know that the Acton Boxborough Cultural Council has actually taken a pause on their world film series because of lack of volunteers in order to make it happen. And ActonTV also does a film festival for youth. So there's potential partners. I just wanted to share some information with the board about the goal-setting process. And then please, before someone makes a motion to adjourn, I forgot to make a comment during our liaison assignments. So please remind me. So obviously, many or all of our short-term goals have been met in full or maybe in part. So they will be, I assume, rolling off. So long-term goals might move to short-term goals if the board decides that we want to elevate them in priority. One of the ones that John mentioned was the stormwater funding. And alternatively, things could be replaced if we decide as a board that something else has become more of a priority. I really liked Dean's process last year where we sent board members, each board member sent to the manager's office 5 short-term and 5 long-term goals ahead of time, just so the spreadsheet can be populated before our workshop. It just makes it more efficient. So the deadline for that is Monday, June 8th, which is the day of our workshop, but at 10 a.m. So we can get that spreadsheet populated. And I am still thinking about a voting procedure. If anybody has suggestions, you can send them to me. Just don't send them to anybody else but me. I was considering ranked choice voting, but I don't know that that's really the best option. My aim is that it's a consensus, right, among the board members. But for 5 people voting on 20 to 25 options, I just don't know that that is not options, items, that would actually be the ideal setting for ranked choice voting. I'm just trying to find a solution to identify a natural break, so we don't have a whole bunch of goals that get the exact same score and we don't know exactly where to cut it off. It could be fine that it's, very few goals. It definitely won't be fine if the break is, like in 2023, way down the line and we have too many goals. If we don't do ranked choice voting where you're giving a higher score to certain goals, I would like to have folks vote 1 per goal, again, to ensure that the goals that make the cut are reflective of a majority of the board. Fran. I love a Porch Fest, though, so I'm not disappointed that is on our long-term goal list. So during our agenda setting meeting, one of the points that was raised was clarity for board members about goals that need to stay on the list because it takes a lot of either funding or staff time or both. And what, if it doesn't make it onto the list, will still be pursued. So I think that the number 1 short-term goal from last year, the HVAC at Town Hall, that's an example that if it doesn't, John mentioned we got the funding and the design, but we haven't built it. If that doesn't make the cut, it's not it's not going to not go forward. That was a double negative. It's still going to be built, not built, replaced. But another example, the DPW, we got funding for the design, but we still need to get funding for the construction. So that, in my opinion, does need to make the cut and continue to be a priority. But we'll vote on all of those during our workshop. And then just for the public, to remind folks that our listening session will be on our agenda for June 1st. There will most likely be 3 minutes per person, our same public comment time limit. But I want to limit it to, 15, 20 minutes in total. So if there are 30 or 40 people, then you're going to have a shorter amount of time. But that is okay because you will still be able to have other people in the public, in the community who are watching, hear your suggestion for the board to prioritize. But if you want to provide additional details, that can happen in an email. So the advantage of having other people hear what's on your mind will still take place even if you don't have the 3-minute limit. The last couple of years, I think that there have been very few people who are here in person. That's my memory. And I think that's all I have. Are there any comments or questions from other board members about the process? David?
Just a minor comment. I think the situation where you get a ton of ties is where the number of votes that we have equals the number of suggestions that we have for either short or long term, because people tend to vote for their own. So if each of us gives, 5 things that could be on the list, and each of us has 5 votes, so you could give more votes, and then you can decide whether we're allowed to vote for 2 or 1, or 2 votes on each one, or whatever, how to distribute the votes.
So to solve that problem, if I'm understanding, is if we are submitting 5 suggestions, then maybe our vote needs to be vote for the top 3.
Or there's just the opposite. So if there were 10, if I had 10 votes and I submitted 5, well, I'm going to vote for my 5. But the other 5, I'm going to choose things that other board members submitted.
Okay.
Right? So I think, I'd pick it. I mean, I'm not going to put one on my list that I don't want. Right? So,
Sure.
Anyway, just an idea.
Thank you for that. Pam?
Just following up on that, or there could be an agreement, we don't vote for our own because we all recognize we would vote for our own, so that, so that's a vote in the background, but if part of the, what we're doing is looking to come up with consensus, then we're all forced to look at each other's goals. Just a thought.
Thank you for that. My face and shaking head was that's not necessarily true, because I've actually, in the past, not voted for mine because somebody else puts forward something that I think, oh, that's a better idea, or that's more important. But I'll mull it over, and please send me your ideas. And then I remembered, if there are no other comments, all right, I remembered all on my own because I asked you to remind me when we were addressing our liaison assignments. I forgot to offer a reminder for, I think this past year was a great year for more information that came forward from boards and committees that you're liaison to during the member minute. So I just wanted to offer a reminder because I was reviewing some past meeting minutes of the Board of Selectmen years ago, and they used to do a liaison report agenda item at the end of their meeting, similar to the Finance Committee and the School Committee, and there was a lot of really good information that I thought would benefit board members and also the public to hear if you can't get to, those boards and committees. But rather than replacing member minutes with that at the end of a meeting when it's late, I would just offer a reminder if there's something of import that your board is discussing or a decision that they've made that you think board members or the public would be interested in, stick it in during the member minute. And I'll use you, Pam, as an example, since you've not actually taken on these liaison roles yet until, moving forward. I did look at the planning board agenda for tomorrow night, and I noticed that they are authorizing the chair for a letter of support for a Great Road Corridor grant application, which sounds really exciting, and I can't go to the meeting, but I really want to know about it, because it sounds like it will, if we get it, it would do something to boost economic development. So that is the kind of information that I'd love to hear more of during member minutes. Thank you. And one more motion or comment.
I'll save my comment and move to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, sorry, would you like to comment? Oh, during our, sorry, I forgot. You guys have to remind me, because I'm new at this. Thank you, Cal.
I'm Richard Kelleher. I'm a member of the DRB, but I'm here as an individual. There is I didn't hear in the goals the tree bylaw, tree yard bylaw. It's been prepared. I did it myself, so I know. And I did it with Green Acton, their land use committee. And then they suggested it be presented to the design review board. And that was done. And the design review board made some comments and suggestions, and those are being incorporated now. And I understand that the board is going to be voting to submit that to you. I don't know when they meet, but we're hoping you can put it in your priorities for town meeting for next year. And what it would require is some planning department time to, it's a zoning bylaw, and probably legal time, I imagine, too, whatever you have to do to get it through. I'm hoping you can put that in their goals.
Okay, thank you. So just, if there's somebody from the design review board who wants to come to the listening session on June 1st to share that publicly, you've just done it, so maybe just sending in the email to the select board would also do the trick. So we'll have a listening session on the 1st, and then the workshop is on the 8th, and we'll vote on we'll choose our goals, and then we'll approve them at our next meeting on June 15th, hopefully, if all goes well.
June 1st, 8th, and 15th, okay.
Yes, yeah.
And it'd be Green Acton is the proponent.
Okay, thank you.
The DRB, I know that Green Acton would love to have them out there charging forward, but I think Peter figures it's not really the DRB's job to be doing trees.
Very, very
And
good.
it sort of happened because I was interested in it, and it did have design review implications. And, we're familiar with zoning bylaws, so it's probably not a bad idea to get some review there, and we did. But it's the Green Acton is the proponent.
Thanks. I suspect that we'll have a few folks from Green Acton here on June 1st. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, now your motion.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? We are adjourned.